The Great Hall of the Galactic Senate was the most beautiful place in the known universe. 1,000 species had built it together over 10,000 years. Crystal walls caught the light of 3 suns. Golden floors reflected the faces of the most powerful beings in existence. And today, like every other day for the past 300 years, humanity stood at the bottom of those golden stairs, begging for scraps. Ambassador Hana walked to the center of the hall. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes. Behind her, the human delegation stood in simple gray uniforms. They looked plain compared to the colorful robes and shining armor of the other species. The aliens whispered and laughed. Some did not even try to hide their amusement. High Counselor Veth sat on his throne at the top of the stairs. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His species had ruled the Senate for 2,000 years. He looked down at Hana the way a person might look at an insect. "You may speak, human," Veth said. His voice echoed through the hall. "Make it quick. We have important matters to discuss." Hana bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. I come to request protection for our outer colony worlds. In the past year, pirates have attacked 17 human settlements. Over 40,000 of our people have been killed or taken as slaves. We ask the Senate to send patrol ships to protect our borders, as the Galactic Compact promises." The hall was silent for a moment. Then Veth laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Other aliens joined him, and soon the whole Senate was filled with the sound of mockery. "Protection?" Veth said when he could speak again. "You want us to spend our resources protecting your little farms and factories? Humanity joined the compact only 300 years ago. You are infants, larval creatures. Perhaps if you learned to protect yourselves, you would not need to come crying to us." Hana's hands trembled at her sides, but her face stayed calm. "The compact promises mutual defense. We have paid our taxes. We have followed every law. We have sent our young people to work in your mines and factories. We have given you everything you asked for. We only ask for what was promised in return." Veth waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Promises are for equals. Humans are not our equals. You never will be. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when you have evolved a little more, we can discuss this again. Until then, solve your own problems." Next matter. The aliens moved on to discussing trade routes and mining rights. Hana stood there for a long moment, forgotten. The human delegation watched her, waiting. Finally, she turned and walked out of the Great Hall. No one looked at her as she left. On the shuttle back to Earth, Hana sat alone in her quarters. She stared at the stars passing by the window. Her assistant, a young man named June, knocked on her door. "Ambassador? Are you all right?" Hana did not turn around. "Tell Admiral Tayo I need to meet with him as soon as we land. Tell him it is time." June paused. He knew what those words meant. Every human knew. They had been waiting for those words for 50 years. "Yes, Ambassador. I will send the message." 3 days later, Hana sat in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of what was once called Korea. With her were the most powerful humans alive. Admiral Taiho was an old man with white hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Director Minho was younger, with a sharp face and sharper mind. He ran every spy and agent humanity had spread across the galaxy. And Dr. Sunwoo was a woman of middle age, brilliant and strange, the architect of every secret weapon humanity had built. "It is time," Hana said simply. "They will never see us as equals. They will never protect us. They will let us die and take everything we have built." Admiral Taiho nodded slowly. "I have watched them for 60 years. You are right. They see us as animals. Useful animals, but animals nonetheless. And when animals become inconvenient, they are put down. Director Minho pulled up a holographic display. It showed the entire galaxy, with human space marked in blue. Their territory looked small compared to the great empires around them. My agents report that Trade Lord Bellows has been meeting with Warlord Crix of the Torani Empire. They are discussing our outer colonies. Bellows wants our resources. Crix wants a war to prove his strength. They are planning to invade within the year. Dr. Sunwoo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then it is good that Project Exodus is complete. 3,000 warships. Weapons they cannot imagine. Soldiers who have trained their entire lives for this moment. We are ready. Hannah looked at each of them. Then I will return to the Senate one more time. I will give them a chance. One chance. And when they refuse, as I know they will, we will show them what humanity really is. 1 week later, Ambassador Hana walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Senate for the last time. She did not bow. She did not wait to be recognized. She simply walked to the center of the floor and spoke. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Compact. All treaties are void. All agreements are canceled. We take back our people, our ships, our technology, and our future. The hall erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted and screamed. High Counselor Veth stood up, his forearms waving in anger. You cannot do this. There are procedures, laws. You cannot simply leave. Hannah looked up at him with eyes that held no fear. Watch us. And know this, Counselor. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. We have suffered your insults and your cruelty for 300 years. That patience has ended. Any species that attacks human space will face total war. Not the small wars you are used to. Not the polite wars where you capture territory and negotiate borders. Total war. The kind of war humans fight. The kind where we do not stop until our enemies no longer exist. She turned and walked out of the hall. Behind her, the Senate descended into panic dot across the galaxy. Human ships that had been docked at alien stations suddenly powered up their engines. Human workers put down their tools and walked to evacuation shuttles. Human diplomats closed their embassies and burned their files. In a single hour, every human in the galaxy began moving toward home. The lights went dark in human embassies on 1,000 worlds. The halls of the Galactic Senate fell silent. For the first time in 300 years, humanity was alone, and they were finally free. The celebration in the Galactic Senate lasted for 3 days. Aliens drank rare wines and danced in the golden halls. High Counselor Veth gave speech after speech about how humanity had finally shown its true nature. Cowards, he called them. Weak creatures who ran away when things got difficult. Good riddance, Veth announced to cheering crowds. The humans were always a burden. They complained too much. They asked for too much. Now they hide in their little corner of the galaxy, and we never have to listen to their whining again. Let them rot. Trade Lord Bellows sat in his private chamber and smiled. He was a massive creature, round and soft, with golden scales and small, greedy eyes. He had made his fortune selling human workers to mines and factories across the galaxy. Humans were cheap. Humans worked hard. Humans did not complain because they knew no one would listen. Now the humans were gone, but Bellows saw an opportunity. He called Warlord Crix on a secure channel. Crix was the opposite of Bellows. He was tall and covered in hard black armor that was part of his body. His species, the Torani, were warriors. They lived for battle. And Crix was the greatest warrior among them. The humans have abandoned their outer colonies, Bellows said. 20 worlds full of minerals, factories, and technology. All undefended. all waiting for someone strong enough to take them. Crix's red eyes glowed with interest. You want me to invade human space? I want you to liberate resources that are being wasted. The humans are cowards who ran away from a fight. They will not resist. And when you take their worlds, I will buy everything you find. We will both become very rich. Crix thought about this. He had fought many wars, but never against humans. He had heard stories about human history. They had strange wars on their home planet, wars where millions died for ideas no one could explain. But that was long ago. The humans Crix knew were workers and servants. They bowed their heads and did what they were told. I will gather my fleet, Crix said. 500 ships should be more than enough to crush whatever resistance they offer. In a small research station on a moon far from any empire, observer Luma sat alone in her study. Luma was old, even by the standards of her long-lived species. She had watched civilizations rise and fall for 1,000 years. Her job was to record history, not to make it. But today, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. She had spent the past week studying everything she could find about humanity. Their history, their biology, their psychology. And what she found disturbed her deeply. Humans were endurance predators. On their home world, they had hunted by following their prey for days, never stopping, never resting, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They did not have the strength of other predators. They did not have the speed. But they had something far more dangerous. They did not give up, ever. Luma read about human wars. Not the small conflicts other species fought over territory and resources. Real wars. Wars where humans burned their own cities rather than let enemies take them. Wars where they fought to the last soldier, the last bullet, the last breath. Wars where they invented new ways to kill faster than their enemies could adapt. She published a report and sent it to every government in the galaxy. The title was simple. Warning: do not engage humanity in military conflict. Almost no one read it. High Counselor Veth glanced at the report and deleted it. Fear-mongering, he said. Humans are primitives. They have no real military technology. They have no experience fighting real wars. If they were dangerous, they would have shown it by now. Trade Lord Bellows did not even open the report. He was too busy counting the profits he expected to make. Only one person took the warning seriously. In a dark room on the Torani home world, a young officer named Dren read Luma's report 3 times. He went to Warlord Crix and begged him to reconsider. The humans are not what we think they are, Dren said. Look at their history. They are monsters when they fight. They invented weapons that could destroy their entire planet, and then they built thousands of them. What kind of species does that? Crix laughed and pushed the young officer aside. You read too much. You think too much. Humans are prey animals that learn to use tools. They will scatter like frightened animals when they see our fleet. And if they do not scatter, we will crush them. It will be good practice for my soldiers. The Torani fleet assembled over the following weeks. 500 warships, the largest fleet Crix had ever commanded. 2 million soldiers, trained for ground combat. Hundreds of transport ships carrying supplies for a long occupation. It was a force that could conquer most species in the galaxy. As the fleet prepared to leave, Crix addressed his troops. We go to take what is rightfully ours. The humans abandoned their territory, and abandoned territory belongs to whoever is strong enough to claim it. They will not fight. They cannot fight. We are Torani. We are warriors. They are nothing. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for the human colony world called New BUSAN. In human space. Admiral Tayo stood in a command center buried deep underground. Holographic displays showed every ship in the Tarani fleet. He had known about the invasion before Crix had even started planning it. Director Minho's spies were everywhere. Captain Yuna stood beside him, young and eager. She commanded the warship Iron Will, one of the new ships built in secret shipyards that the galaxy did not know existed. She wanted to strike first. She wanted to ambush the Tarani fleet before it reached New Bizan. "Let me take my squadron," she said. "We can destroy their supply ships. Slow them down. Make them afraid." Taiho shook his head slowly. "No, let them come. Let them land on New Bizan. Let the whole galaxy watch what happens when someone attacks human soil." Yuna frowned. "But the colonists, 50,000 people live there. They will be in danger." Taiho's old eyes were sad but steady. "The colonists have been preparing for this their entire lives. Every adult on New Bizan knows how to fight. They have weapons hidden in every building, tunnels under every street. They are not victims waiting to be rescued. They are the first line of defense. And when the Tarani learn what that means, the galaxy will finally understand what we are." He turned back to the displays. The Tarani fleet was getting closer. "Send the Iron Will and 12 escorts. Stay hidden until I give the signal. And Yuna, when you fight, make sure the whole galaxy is watching. Make sure they never forget." Yuna saluted and left. She was about to fight the first battle of a war that would change everything. On New Bizan, the colonists watched the sky and waited. They did not run. They did not hide. They checked their weapons and remembered the words their parents and grandparents had taught them. The words all humans knew by heart. We do not surrender. We do not run. We fight until we win. The Tarani were coming, and they had no idea what was waiting for them. The Tarani fleet dropped out of hyperspace, above New Bizan, like a swarm of metal insects. 500 warships filled the sky, blocking out the stars. On the planet below, 50,000 humans looked up and saw death coming for them. Warlord Crix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the crushing tide. He looked at the small blue and green planet on his view screen and smiled. It was a pretty world, rich in minerals, good farmland. It would make an excellent addition to the Tarani Empire. "Send the message," he ordered. His communications officer broadcast on all frequencies. "Humans of New Bizan, you are surrounded. Your government has abandoned you. You have no warships, no army, no hope. Surrender now, and you will be treated as prisoners. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." Crix expected panic. He expected to see evacuation ships trying to flee. He expected desperate calls begging for mercy. Instead, he got silence. For 30 minutes, the planet said nothing. Then a single message came from the surface. It was a woman's voice, old and calm. "We are the people of New Bizan. We do not surrender. We do not run. Come and take it." Crix laughed. Brave words from people who are about to die. Begin the landing. Thousands of dropships fell from the Tarani fleet like rain. They carried the first wave of soldiers, 200,000 warriors in heavy armor. They landed in the fields outside the main city and formed their battle lines. The city looked quiet. No soldiers on the walls. No weapons visible. Just empty streets and silent buildings. The Tarani general on the ground, a veteran named Vork, felt uneasy. This was too easy. Where were the defenders? "Advance slowly," he ordered. "Watch for traps." The Tarani soldiers marched into the city. The streets were narrow, the buildings tall, perfect for an ambush. But there was no one there. They passed homes and shops, all empty. They reached the central square without firing a single shot. Then the first bomb exploded. It was hidden under the street, right in the center of the Tarani formation. 50 soldiers died instantly. Before the others could react, gunfire erupted from every window, every rooftop, every doorway. Humans appeared from nowhere, firing weapons that should not have been possible for a colony world to possess. The Tarani were trained soldiers. They tried to return fire, tried to find cover. But the humans knew every corner of their city. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the Tarani could aim. And they did not stop. Not for a second. General Vork called for reinforcements. More dropships came down. More soldiers poured into the city. The humans fell back, street by street, building by building. But they made the Tarani pay for every step. For every human that fell, 10 Tarani died. An old woman with gray hair fired a rifle from her bedroom window until she ran out of ammunition. Then she threw furniture at the soldiers climbing her stairs. A teenage boy led a squad of Tarani into a basement filled with explosives. He died smiling. A young mother kissed her children goodbye, sent them into a hidden tunnel, and picked up a weapon that was too heavy for her to carry properly. She killed 11 soldiers before they brought her down. On his flagship, Warlord Crix watched the battle reports with growing confusion. This was not how inferior species were supposed to fight. They were supposed to run. They were supposed to surrender. They were not supposed to fight like demons for every street corner. Send more troops, he ordered. Crush them. By the end of the first day, the Tarani controlled half the city. They had lost 40,000 soldiers. The humans had lost maybe 2,000. It was impossible. It was insane. But it was true. Then Captain Yuna arrived. The Iron Will and 12 other human warships dropped out of hyperspace directly behind the Tarani fleet. They were small compared to the massive Tarani carriers. They were outnumbered more than 40 to 1. And they were completely silent. Yuna opened a channel to Warlord Crix. Her face appeared on his screen, young and fierce, with eyes that held no fear. Warlord Crix, you have attacked human soil. You have killed human civilians. You have 1 hour to retreat from this system. There will be no second warning. Crix stared at her in disbelief. You threaten me? With 13 ships against 500? You are either brave or insane. My people say those are the same thing. Yuna cut the channel. Krix did not wait an hour. He ordered his fleet to destroy the human ships immediately. 200 Tarani warships turned to face the small human squadron. They fired everything they had. The human ships did something impossible. They flickered. One moment they were there, the next they were somewhere else. The Tarani weapons hit empty space. Then the human ships fired back. The Iron Will launched a single missile at the nearest Tarani carrier. It was a small missile, no bigger than a person. But when it hit, the carrier exploded from the inside out. Metal and bodies scattered across space like leaves in a storm. Tarani had never seen weapons like this. Dr. Sunwood spent 50 years developing technology that the rest of the galaxy thought was impossible. Phase drives that let ships jump short distances in an instant. Weapons that could slip through any shield. Armor that adapted to whatever hit it. The humans had kept it all secret, waiting for this moment. The battle in space lasted 3 hours. Yuna commanded her squadron, like an artist painting a masterpiece. They dove through the Tarani formation, destroying ships twice their size with single shots. When a Tarani captain managed to disable one of the human destroyers, the human crew did not surrender. They aimed their dying ship at the nearest enemy carrier and accelerated to full speed. They are ramming us. The Tarani captain screamed. Those we. His last words. By the end of the battle, the sky above New Bizon was filled with debris. 477 Taurani warships had been destroyed. The humans had lost 4. 23 Taurani ships escaped, their crews traumatized, their captains broken. Warlord Crix was not among them. The Iron Will had captured his flagship intact. Yuna walked onto the bridge of the crushing tide and found the great warlord on his knees, surrounded by human soldiers. "How?" Crix whispered. "How is this possible? You are humans. You are weak. You are primitives." Yuna looked down at him with cold eyes. "You thought we were weak because we were patient. You thought we were primitives because we were quiet. You thought you knew us because you saw us bow and serve and suffer. But you never saw what we really are." She grabbed his chin and forced him to look at her. "We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not run. We fight until we win. And now, Warlord, you are going to help us send a message to the rest of the galaxy." On New Bizon, the surviving colonists emerged from their hiding places. The city was ruined. Many had died, but they had won. Against 2 million soldiers, against 500 warships, they had won. An old man looked at the burning sky and smiled. His grandfather had told him stories about humanity's wars on Earth, about cities that refused to fall, about people who fought tanks with bottles of fire, about nations that burned their own lands rather than let invaders take them. "Now they know," the old man said to no one. "Now the whole galaxy knows." The first battle was over, but the war had just begun. News of the Battle of New Bizon spread across the galaxy like wildfire. At first, no one believed it. 500 warships destroyed by 13? 2 million soldiers defeated by 50,000 civilians? It had to be propaganda. It had to be lies. Then the survivors started talking. Taurani soldiers who had escaped told stories that sounded like nightmares. Humans who fought without fear. Humans who smiled as they died. Weapons that appeared from nowhere and vanished into nothing. Ships that moved like ghosts through space. Observer Luma watched the reports from her research station and felt sick. She had warned them. She had told them exactly what would happen. And they had not listened. High Counselor Veth received the news in his private chambers. For the first time in his long life, he felt real fear. He immediately tried to contact the human government. He sent messages offering peace, offering apologies, offering anything they wanted. The humans did not respond. Instead, Admiral Tayo broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. His face appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device in known space. He was an old man, but his eyes were sharp and his voice was cold. 300 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Compact. We came in peace. We asked only to live among you as equals. You gave us contempt. You gave us slavery. You gave us death. And when we asked for protection, you laughed at us. He paused and let the words settle. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in silence. We tried peace. You rejected it. We tried diplomacy. You ignored it. We tried patience. You mistook it for weakness. Now we will try something else. We will try war. The kind of war humans fight. The kind of war that ends only when our enemies can never threaten us again. He looked directly into the camera, and somehow it felt like he was looking at each viewer personally. Operation Falling Star begins now. Hidden shipyards across human space opened their doors. Ships that had been built in secret for 50 years emerged into the light. 3,000 warships, each one carrying technology the galaxy had never seen. They were not large ships. They did not need to be. They were fast and deadly and crewed by people who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The human fleet split into 100 squadrons and struck the Taurani Empire from every direction at once. They did not attack cities. They did not bomb civilian populations. They targeted military bases, supply depots, shipyards, and command centers. They were precise and ruthless and utterly unstoppable. In the Tarani capital, generals screamed at each other as their defenses collapsed. Every time they sent ships to intercept a human squadron, the humans flickered away and appeared somewhere else. Every time they thought they had found a pattern, the humans changed tactics. It was like fighting smoke. Director Mino sat in his command center and watched the war unfold. His spies had spent decades mapping every weakness in the Tarani military. They knew where every ship was stationed. They knew every communication code. They knew which generals were competent and which were fools. And now that knowledge was being used with surgical precision. "Hit the supply base at Tarani 3, he ordered. "Their fleet at Tarani 7 has 3 days of fuel left. After that, they cannot move." Human commandos struck behind enemy lines, destroying fuel depots and communication towers. Human hackers shut down defense networks. Human agents spread confusion and fear. By the 4th day of the war, the Tarani Empire was fighting blind. Dr. Sunwoo watched the battle reports with satisfaction. Every weapon worked exactly as designed. The phase drives let human ships appear and disappear at will. The adaptive shields learned from every hit and became stronger. The penetration missiles could slip through any defense. But her greatest achievement was something simpler. Human soldiers wore armor that made them almost impossible to kill. They could take wounds that would kill any alien and keep fighting. They could survive in environments that would destroy any other species. And they never, ever stopped. On the 6th day, the Tarani military surrendered. It was not a negotiated peace. It was total collapse. The greatest military power in the sector had been destroyed in less than a week. Their fleets were gone. Their bases were rubble. Their generals were dead or captured. And humanity had lost fewer than 1,000 soldiers. High Counselor Veth watched the surrender ceremony and felt his world crumbling. The Tarani had been the military backbone of the Galactic Senate. Without them, there was nothing to stop the humans from doing whatever they wanted. He tried again to contact Admiral Teo. This time, he got a response. "Counselor Veth." Teo's face appeared on his screen. "You look frightened." "Good. You should be." "Please," Veth said. The word felt strange in his mouth. He had never begged for anything in his life. "We can discuss peace. We can give humanity whatever you want. Just tell us what you need." Taiho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You had 300 years to give us what we needed. Respect, fairness, basic decency. You refused. Now you will watch as we take what we should have been given." The human fleet did not attack the Senate directly. They did something worse. They exposed the truth. Director Mingo released files that his agents had collected over decades. Evidence of trade Lord Bellows selling human workers as slaves. Records of Senate members voting to deny humans basic rights. Communications between Warlord Crix and Counselor Veth discussing plans to divide human territory. Every crime, every betrayal, every cruel joke made at humanity's expense was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Trade. Lord Bellows tried to flee in his private ship. Human agents had sabotaged his engines. He was captured and brought before the cameras, his fortune seized, his reputation destroyed. The being who had grown rich on human suffering was left with nothing. Other aliens who had exploited humanity faced similar fates. Some were arrested by their own governments, desperate to show that they were not enemies of humanity. Some disappeared, never to be seen again. Some killed themselves rather than face human justice. High Counselor Veth resigned in disgrace. His species, which had ruled the Senate for 2,000 years, lost all credibility. The political structure that had dominated the galaxy for millennia collapsed in weeks, Dot Observer Luma recorded everything. She had been watching civilizations for 1,000 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just won a war. They had broken the entire system that had oppressed them, and they had done it in less than a month. She updated her report on humanity. The new title was simple: The Apex Species. On the Iron Will, Captain Yuna received word that the Senate had requested peace talks. She passed the message to Admiral Tayo and asked what they should do next. Tayo was silent for a long moment. Bring Ambassador Hana. It is time for her to speak to the Senate again. But this time, she will not be asking for anything. This time, she will be telling them how things are going to be. Yuna nodded. And if they refuse? The old admiral looked at the stars on his view screen. So many worlds. So many species that had looked down on humanity for so long. They will not refuse, he said quietly. They are not brave enough to refuse. That is the difference between them and us. We were willing to burn everything to be free. They were not willing to sacrifice anything to stop us. And that is why they lost. The war was over. Now came the harder part. Building a new galaxy from the ashes of the old. 6 months had passed since humanity declared war. The galaxy was a different place now. The old powers had fallen. The old alliances had shattered. And in the great hall of the Galactic Senate, where humans had once been mocked and humiliated, a new order was being born. Ambassador Hana walked up the golden stairs. The same stairs she had stood at the bottom of for so many years. The same hall where High Counselor Veth had called her species larvae and infants. But everything was different now. The aliens in the hall did not laugh. They did not whisper. They watched her with fear and respect. Some bowed their heads as she passed. Others could not meet her eyes at all. Hana reached the top of the stairs and turned to face the assembled delegates. Her gray uniform was the same simple design she had always worn. She had not changed, but the way the galaxy saw her had changed completely. I stood in this hall 6 months ago, she began. I asked for protection for human colonies. I asked for the basic rights promised in the Galactic Compact. You refused. You laughed. You told me humanity was nothing. She paused and looked at the empty throne where Veth had once sat. The new Speaker of the Senate, a nervous creature with too many eyes, sat in a smaller chair to the side. He did not dare claim the old throne. Now I stand here again. But I am not here to ask for anything. I am here to tell you how things will be from this day forward. The hall was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We do not want to become the kind of empire that oppressed us. We want only 3 things: respect, fairness, and justice. She pulled out a small device and projected a document into the air above the assembly. These are the new terms of the Galactic Compact. Every species will be treated as equals. No species will be allowed to enslave or exploit another. Trade will be fair. Treaties will be honored. And any species that attacks another will face the combined response of all members. A delegate raised a trembling hand. And if we refuse these terms? Hana looked at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering. Then humanity will leave again. And you will be alone when the next predator species rises. You will face them without our ships, without our technology, without our soldiers. We survived 300 years of your contempt. Can you survive without our protection? No one argued. The new Galactic Compact was signed that same day. For the first time in history, every species had equal standing. Every species had equal rights. And humanity stood at the center of the new order, not as conquerors, but as guardians. On Earth, Warlord Crix sat in a prison cell and waited. He had been treated fairly. The humans had not tortured him or humiliated him. They had simply locked him in a room and left him alone with his thoughts. In some ways, that was worse. Admiral Taiho came to visit him one day. The old human sat on a chair outside the cell and looked at the defeated warlord. "You asked me once how humanity became so powerful," Taiho said. "I told you that you taught us. Every species that hurt us taught us. Do you understand now?" Crix nodded slowly. "You learned from our wars, our tactics, our technology." "Not just that." Taiho leaned forward. "We learned patience from species that ignored us. We learned secrecy from species that spied on us. We learned ruthlessness from species that exploited us. We took every lesson the galaxy taught us and used it to become something you could not imagine." Crix was silent for a long moment. "What will you do with me?" "You will sign a surrender document. You will admit your crimes. And then you will go home and rebuild your empire as a peaceful nation. We are not monsters. We do not destroy species. We just make sure they can never threaten us again." Across the galaxy, observer Luma published her final report on humanity. It was read by every scholar and leader in known space. "Humanity was never a larval species," she wrote. "They were never primitives or savages or animals. They were predators who chose to be peaceful. They were warriors who chose to be patient. They were monsters who chose to be kind. The galaxy looked at their kindness and mistook it for weakness. That mistake nearly destroyed us all." She continued, "Other species conquered because they were strong. Humanity conquered because they were wronged. They did not fight for power or territory. They fought because they were given no other choice. And when they fought, they did not stop until their enemies could never threaten them again. This is the human way. This is why they are the apex species. This is why the galaxy should pray they never have reason to fight again." On New Bizin, the colonists had rebuilt their city. The scars of battle were still visible in some places. Broken buildings, empty spaces where homes had once stood. But new construction was rising everywhere. The people who had fought and suffered were determined to make their world beautiful again. A monument stood in the central square, carved from black stone. It showed a human figure standing tall, one hand raised to the sky, the other holding a weapon at their side. At the base were carved the words that had defined humanity's struggle. They thought we would break. We did not. Every day, humans from across the galaxy came to see the monument. They touched the cool stone and remembered what their people had survived. They told their children the stories of the battle. They made sure that no generation would ever forget. Captain Yuna returned to the Iron Will after the peace was signed. She stood on the bridge and looked at the stars through the view screen. Her ship was docked at a station that had once been controlled by species who saw humans as nothing. Now those species bowed their heads when human ships passed. A young officer approached her. He was fresh from the academy, born after the war began, raised on stories of human courage and sacrifice. "Captain," he said, "do you think we will ever have to fight again?" Yuna thought about the question. She remembered the faces of the soldiers who had died under her command. She remembered the civilians of New Bizin who had fought with weapons they barely knew how to use. She remembered the fear in alien eyes when they finally understood what humanity could do. "Humans always hope for peace," she said finally. "We dream of a galaxy where we can live alongside other species as friends. But we are not naive. We know that some will always see kindness as weakness. Some will always want what we have. Some will always think they can take what is ours." She turned to the young officer with a sad smile. "So we hope for peace, but we prepare for everything else. We train, we build, we remember. And if anyone ever threatens human lives again, we will show them the same thing we showed the Torani. "What is that, Captain?" Yuna looked back at the stars. "That we are humans. That we do not surrender. That we do not run. And that we fight until we win." In the great hall of the Galactic Senate, aliens who had once ruled the galaxy now sat as equals with the species they had mocked. In classrooms across 1,000 worlds, children learned that humans were to be respected, never underestimated. In the darkest corners of space, pirates and warlords whispered warnings to each other. Never attack human ships. Never touch human colonies. Never give humans a reason to come for you. Humanity had won their war. But more than that, they had changed the galaxy forever. They had proven that patience was not weakness, that kindness was not surrender, that a species willing to sacrifice everything for freedom could never truly be defeated. And in their hearts, every human carried the same quiet promise. If the galaxy ever forgot these lessons, humanity would be ready to teach them again. The stars shone cold and distant, but humanity was no longer afraid of the dark. They had been forged in darkness. They had learned to carry their own light, and that light would never go out.